In today's show, Jason Quick of The Athletic joins to talk about what he's liked about the Trailblazers, some things he hasn't liked through the first 4 games, and a story he wrote about Anfernee Simons and cereal. Let's get into it. Welcome to Locked On Blazers.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is a very special one. We are joined by my friend and yours, senior writer for The Athletic, the man who's been covering the Trailblazers longer and better than everyone you know, none other than Jason Quick. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great, Michael. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been 8 hours or so. But we haven't had you on the podcast in many, many moons. So we've seen each other, but we haven't done it in the digital space in a little while.
Right.
We're 4 games into the season.
Just so listeners know, Mike and I sit next to each other during the Blazer games. So it's quite an enjoyable experience for me. We get to bounce ideas and whatnot and observations off each other. So
yeah, did you
anyways.
miss me for a year watching it at home, all the stupid nerdy stuff that I say?
Yes, I did. Yes and no, actually. Sometimes you are just really nerdy. You know,
airing me out here.
Yeah, well, and I have to tell the audience that it was quite the scene pregame last night. I walk in and Richmond's huddled with Kevin Pelton and Sean Hyken, and they're just nerding out, probably computing some stats and talking about some new metric or something. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm getting away from this.
Yeah, Jason was zoomed in and out of the media room faster than you could imagine. He was not going to get caught. He was not going to get caught in that mess. That's a pro's pro right there. Jason, we're 4 games into this Blazers season, and they've had a lot of peaks and valleys already. 4 games in, it has been up and down. Let's start with what have you liked? Like, what's promising about this first 4 games?
Oh, I think you can see the progress of Anfernee Simons and Nasir Little. I think both of them have been very, very encouraging, and a reason that's so encouraging is because I think they're the X factor on this team's ceiling.
Sure.
If both of them pop, then this team has a chance to be very, very good. I think even if one of them pops, it really greatly enhances this team's chances. But if both of them continue to play at this level, I think that bodes really well for the team. What else have I liked? I thought last night, for the first time all season, we saw what Larry Nance can give this team. He was really bouncy and kind of just really involved. I think he's kind of scuffled a little bit in the early season before last night. Not really getting his hands on balls, not really getting long shifts to play, hasn't hit his shot. But last night I thought he was really effective, and you could see kind of the versatility and the different look that he gives this team. One of the things about this Blazers team is it's not terribly athletic. And that's why Nasir is so important. And you can see that too with Larry. I mean, Larry has incredible leaps, and he's not afraid to kind of mix it up inside. So it was nice to see that kind of physicality and that athleticism last night from Larry.
Yeah, he busted Desmond Bane's head open on one of his buckets. He got him with an elbow, and it was like, it was unintentional, but you just see he is a physical guy who's able to go in there. He talked about after the game, I think you were somewhere else maybe, but he felt like he hadn't taken any 2-pointers this season, is that he had just been floating around by the arc. And so like last night he was like, I got to find twos. Like I got to find a way to score. And I thought they just need someone who can go around the rim and be effective and work the baselines. He was good. And they need him to be good. I was a pretty big believer in Larry Nance, and then he was like kind of bad the first 3 games. And I was like, classic Richmond. I did it again.
And you know who else I've been really encouraged by is Cody Zeller. I think he's given him great minutes almost every shift. And, last night was also, again, the most he's been allowed to play. And I think he should be playing more. I think he's been really, really solid.
Yeah, it's a tough balance because like he has been in some games just straight up better than Nurk. But I think there's a balance to not just go away from Nurk. They want to give Nurk enough carrot, question. Enough whatever. So it's not like, hey, you got to play 22 minutes because you're not as good as Cody. The way that Billups is handling it, he wants Nurk to be the guy. And so you got to give him minutes and a chance to kind of play through some struggles. But he's definitely had those. CJ McCollum has been great. I think in some ways we take for granted how good he's been because he's just dependable. He's been their best offensive player, I think, through the early part of the season. He wasn't good. He kind of came on late at the end of the game last night. He wasn't good early. But he's been really dependable. I think for me, he's a standout for just they've so far they haven't got dependable offense from Dame. They've got dependable offense from CJ. He's been really good.
And I think he's been really good on both ends too.
Yeah.
I think he's played some pretty good defense. But yeah, no question. He's been their best player. He's kept them in games just with his shot making. I feel like sometimes the offense in this early season has been a grind that it just doesn't have that flow and that rhythm. And CJ has bailed him out just with his ability to create his own shot, create space. And he's had some really, really pretty plays. Last night was one of them where he, kind of put the guy in the blender. And this is what you wanted and needed to see from CJ is, another start like last year. And, knock on wood, if he doesn't get hurt and he continues to play like this, then I think that first All-Star nomination or bid will come because he's been that good. And again, the most encouraging thing is it's not just a tunnel vision all offense. He has played some pretty decent defense. He's been really handsy. I think he leads the team in blocks.
He's had a block and a steal in every game this season. That's pretty rare. Yeah,
that's excellent. So CJ McCollum has been this team's best player.
He's on the "Don't Trade Me" campaign. It's
been I think some other people are have been kind of poking around at this angle, but he has been, I don't know what the right word is. He's been prickly or short, even more short than CJ usually is with the media. And you can tell there's something bothering him. And it probably is, the talks over the summer about, whether or not he should be or will be traded. And I think this is his way of kind of countering that or rebelling against it with his play. And then also he's been very short and kind of standoffish in his interactions with the media. And I think, whatever works for him, that's great.
Yeah. He's like, hey, you can miss this when it's gone.
Right.
But, from maybe a perspective of people trying to get quotes after the game, it can be a little bit like, hey, can you give me a little more? Can you give me just a little titch more? This episode of Locked On Blazers is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll always have dependable Wi-Fi and an endless supply of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team or the away team can come to recharge. It's a place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip so you can rest your legs and refuel. If you're me, it's a place place where you could get a dependable cup of late night coffee and some good Wi-Fi so you could file your high school football stories. Many of my McDonald's memories in recent years have been stopping there knowing that I've got a story on deadline and I need to make sure I land at a place with Wi-Fi. For me, that was McDonald's. So whatever you're looking for, head on over to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. And now, I'll drop you back into more of my conversation with Jason Quick. What do you make of Damian Lillard's shooting start? He made some threes. He made some threes in the third quarter. Like, he had 11 points in the third quarter, hit 3 threes, and it felt like, oh, Dame's back. But it's like, that's not back. He was still 6 of 22. What do you make of his shooting start?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of things, but I really think at the crux of it is he's trying to be a really good team player, and he's trying to operate Chauncey Billups's offense the way the coach wants it. And that means sharing the ball and getting people moving. And I think he's really trying to embrace that. And as a result, it's his game is suffering a little bit. But also, I think he's just missing shots. I mean, it happens. It happens to NBA players, even the greatest players. So, and then I think probably too, it's starting to enter his mind. I don't think it was, a factor after he went 0 for 9 in the opener. But I think by now, 4 games in, and whatever he is, from 3-point range, I think he's like 6 for 30 something.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a little bit in his mind. But again, I don't think he's hurt. I've talked to people around him. He did have a hand issue about a week, 10 days ago, but I think that's cleared up. His abdominal, he has been very upfront about that he heard it during the Olympics. But he felt as good as he's ever felt in a while in training camp. And then, Tuesday before the Memphis game, he was asked directly, like, are you injured? Do you feel all right? And he's like, I'm fine, so he's not making any excuses there. But I really think, though, it's all centered around, Chauncey has made this big deal that it's not going to be the Dame and CJ show. We're not doing the ISOs and all that. We want ball movement, player movement. And I think Dame is really trying to run that to a T. And he hasn't found that balance yet of being the aggressive point guard that he usually was and running the offense. But I think it'll come.
Yeah, I thought actually after last night's game, for the first time, he kind of mentioned like, well, when you're in a shooting stretch like I am, you just need to see the ball go in. And I was like, oh, yeah. So it's getting to you in a way that he was like, I'm not going to, after game 1, he's like, it won't bother me. It's not going to be a thing that drags on. And now that he's missed some shots for a couple days, he's like, yeah, I'd like to make a couple of these. Like, it's normal. It's like, everyone wants to do better at their job. That's all of us.
And especially at the start of a season. Totally. I think that has made it even more magnified. If this was in the middle of January or something, I think we'd have it would have a different feel. But this is at the start of the season, so I think it's a little bit more magnified.
Last night, they kind of early in the game, they were running a bunch of movement stuff. And I thought Dame got good looks and he just continued to miss. And then they kind of went away from it, just ran sort of bread and butter pick and roll stuff. You even mentioned it to me. You said, hey, they're really leaning on the pick and roll, like in the middle of the third quarter. Do you think there'll have to be a give and take this year between kind of, based on what kind of the defense is doing, playing to Dame's comfort zone versus playing to like the way the coaching staff envisions them playing?
Well, it's interesting. I had a talk with Chauncey about this. It was really something larger. We were talking about patience in the larger scheme, but we also went a little bit more detailed and like in the course of a game, they have to find that balance of running the new stuff and doing the new stuff, but also not totally getting away from what makes the Blazers the Blazers. Like, right. Nurk and Dame are the best pick and roll, or one of the best pick and roll combos in the NBA. And they can't lose that. And I think they have lost that in the first 3 games. It has not been, um, they haven't used it as much as they usually did. And I thought, they really scuffled in the first half against Memphis.
Yeah.
And it was just such a grind, and it just was difficult to watch almost. And I thought at halftime, they probably talked about, hey, let's get back to what we're really good at. And I thought, boom, right out of the half, they went pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, and they executed it really well. And I think it was good not only for the team, but it was good for Nurk. Nurk was really kind of not playing well, and it got him going and got him feeling good about himself. And I think it got Dame going a little bit too. Like he started feeling better about himself, and I think that's when we saw him start making some outside shots as well. So I think they're gonna have to find a balance between all of this stuff. But I think it's good that we're seeing it in their heads that, okay, we have to play different, but it's so different for them because this is the way they played for forever. And so I think we're going to see these little, growing pains throughout the early season until they find that kind of balance of, we got our pick and roll going. All right, let's still move the ball around a little bit. They'll get there, but it's going to be, there's going to be nights like last night in the first half where it just doesn't come easy.
Yeah, I even thought, I wrote down a couple of my notes, like a couple of plays in the first half. I was like, this was a really nice play design. Oh, I really like what they did. And then I would have parentheses miss. It's like, oh, well, it's like they didn't score. It's like, well, okay, they got it. It's like, I really like this. I like this action. I want to like look at this later when I'm like going through my notes. Oh, but it was a brick. I was like, so it won't be, it's not like a good thing it's not going to be popular on social media to be like, look at this fun play. It ends with Damian Lillard missing a pretty good look at a 3.
I think what's really encouraging about this start so far, even though they've played in fits and starts, and it's really hard to kind of get a feel for how good this team's going to be, but I think we can see that they're going to be coached well.
Yeah.
They have a plan, and they have good sets, and they have good principles. And I think that's really encouraging for people who were like, oh boy, first time head coach.
Yeah.
I think Chauncey's answered a lot of the questions about him and whether he's going to be, prepared for this. I'm still a little nervous about, they've played 6 games now, or 8 games now total, if you include the preseason, and 2 of those 8, they've just absolutely laid an egg, and effort has been an issue. And that's a little concerning. But, the Phoenix game in the preseason, and then the Clipper game the other night, those are 2 really bad performances where the guys just didn't show up, and that's a little concerning. But I think the more Chauncey gets to know these guys and understands their body language and what's going on, he might be able to kind of stop that before it manifests itself. But I think Chauncey's answered a lot of questions about him in the early season, and that's really encouraging, I think, if you're a Blazer fan.
I think the willingness to abandon your plan midstream is a sign of a good coach. Like to say last night, our offense stinks. Let's do something that's a little bit better. That willingness is the sign of a good coach. Like the willingness to adjust in the middle, whether it was at halftime or whether it was 3 possessions into the third quarter, when they were just like, hey, we're going to do something a little bit different because this is what we're getting. This is the look we're getting on defense. That's challenging, or that's promising. But I think, to your point, the mark of a really good coach and what Chauncey wants his team to be is that the team plays really hard every night.
Yeah.
So you wanted, like, the games, you're going to get blown out in the NBA. You're going to have stinkers, but like to follow up your best performance of the season with a performance where you just didn't bring the requisite juice like they did in LA on Monday, I would say that's probably more troubling than any of the X's and O's stuff. And as you've sat next to me long enough, I'm loving the X's and O's stuff. I'm out here rubbing my hands together like, woo.
And I think that's been a promise that Chauncey has made to the team that, look, I will make the adjustments. You guys just play hard. And, if our defensive schemes aren't working, I'm going to make that adjustment. If our offense isn't going, we're going to go somewhere else. And, that was probably one of Terry's weaknesses is he was incredibly stubborn. He just stuck with things. And Chauncey came in and said, look, guys, leave it to me. I'll make adjustments. If things aren't going well, it's upon me to make those adjustments. Just trust us and play hard and do what we say and leave the rest to us. And I think he's lived up to that promise so far.
Yeah, I think some of that is the Ty Lue influence. I think Lue is really good at kind of tweaking stuff and in-game adjustments and little
one of the best.
Kind of getting in the lab and saying like, okay, we've got to change this up. He's been really good at that, and I think that the Ty Lue influence is pretty obvious with Phillips and the way he's approached. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is. There's no trick there. They're just making delicious bars. They're all covered in 100% chocolate. They're soft and easy to chew. They got that candy bar-like texture. If you're me, you're gravitating towards the peanut butter brownie and the cookies and cream. Those are two of my personal favorites. But whatever your palate, whatever your taste buds, you'll find a Built Bar flavor that meets them. Whether you like the fruity flavors like strawberry or orange, or you're into the more classic ones like salted caramel or German chocolate, there's a Built Bar out there for you. But not only are the best tasting protein bars on the market, they absolutely are, but they also pack a real punch. They're tasty and healthy. 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and no more than 5 grams of net carbs. So what are you waiting for? Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and you will get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. It is the place to get in all of your sports betting action, whatever that is. If that's basketball season's in full swing. They got live scores, live odds, props on out almost every single game imaginable, not only NBA, but if you want to bet on EuroLeague, that's there too. Like literally all things hoops available for you right there. Or say you want to bet on football because college football and the NFL are in full swing. Same deal all weekend long, live game betting, in-game betting. You can bet. There's contests for football all weekend long. There's props on every single game. It's just the number one place to bet on all your sports action. So if that sounds like something you want to do, why not go to betonline.ag right now and use the promo code Locked On. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus when you're making your first deposit. That is promo code Locked On for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit at betonline.ag. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's close out the show. Here's the rest of my conversation with Jason Quick. How good can this team be on defense? What's their sort of defensive ceiling? That's a big question for this group, and obviously they're trying something new.
I think they could be in between like 10 and 15 probably. I thought that Phoenix game at home, I can't remember a Blazer team moving around and rotating and covering for each other as well as they did that game. That game, I mean, it just popped off the court how connected and active they were on defense. If they play like that, they can be a top 10 defense. But it's really hard to do that, over the course of a season, especially with some of their players like Dame and CJ who exert so much energy on the offensive end. But I do think this can be a 10, 11, 12, 13 type defensive team. And I think if they do that, they're going to be a top 3 offensive team.
Yeah.
Then this can be a formidable team, but it's going to take a lot of work to be that team that's in the 10, 11, 12. So that's going to be the intrigue, I think, of this season.
Where does that hinge on? Like for you, who propels this defense forward? Is it so much of it, I guess is what I'm asking. So much of it last year was pinned on Nurk. It was like, okay, Nurk's going to be the guy is it still that? Like, is it still that simple, or do you think it's moved? Do you think it's kind of widened out a little bit, the burden of that?
No, it's widened out. And I think, this is probably a story I'm going to try to illustrate in the next week or so. But and I think you'll start noticing more and more. We saw it last night with Chauncey. Dame has played pretty decent defense in the early season. I'm not ready to say he's been great defensively, but he's been much better. And
he's interested in it for sure.
No question. And he brought it up. Dame brought it up at practice on Tuesday. That I don't know if you guys are watching my D, but and then Chauncey last night, I thought a couple times brought it up. Dame's defense. So this is something that they're trying to gain momentum with this. That our leader is playing defense, and that's so important to this team. Not only because it's Dame, but because it's the first point of of defense is the point guard and keeping guys in front. And that was the biggest kind of weakness of this team, was they weren't offering much resistance at the point of attack. And Chauncey's like, look, I don't expect these guys to be Marcus Smart or Ben Simmons, but we need them to contain the ball for 2 or 3 dribbles.
Exactly.
At least 2 or 3 dribbles. You can't just get beat off the go because then everyone's scrambling. People are getting in foul trouble, but maintain your guy for 2 or 3 dribbles. Give our defense a chance to get there and help and stuff. And I think they've done a decent job at. So, already we talked about CJ playing pretty decent defense. I think Dame has improved defensively, as you say, more engaged. So that's where I think it hinges on, where everyone has always known this team ceiling hinges on the defense of Dame and CJ. And so far, 4 games into the season, I think they've answered the call.
Yeah, I think they've been better. Like you've seen times, it's like they followed up that Phoenix game by giving up 400 points to Luke Kennard. So we'll see. We're recording. This is Friday's show, October 29th. They're going to play the Clippers tonight. So perhaps Quick and I will look foolish again because this team has been so up and down, and we're recording this after an up. It'd be better if we were recording this after a lull, because then we could be haters. And then it's just so much easier to lean into the hate. Optimism takes bravery. But yeah, I think one of the things I was interested in last night, and I one of the veteran reporters who's on the beat skipped Chauncey's pregame media availability. I won't say who, but it was, but I will say it was both Jason and Aaron Fentress. So it was just one podcaster basically in there asking questions. And I asked Chauncey, how do you deal with Ja? And he said we're going to throw him a bunch of looks. We're going to, he's so good at the point, he's going to test our point of attack defense, which has been bad. He's going to give us this great test. I'm really excited for it. We're going to give him all these defensive looks. So I'm like, okay, pregame notes, who guards Ja? This is going to be a big storyline. Is it going to be Nazir? Is it going to be? And it's Dame. It's Dame. Yeah. He gave Dame the primary assignment, the toughest assignment. And I thought, Ja didn't score for the first 18 minutes. Some of that was unrelated, but I think Dame taking on those big assignments, not hiding them on defense, that responsibility is as much a part of it as anything else. Hey, you we're going to give you the all-star on the other team because this is the expectation, is that you can slow this guy down to some extent.
Look, Ja Morant was coming into that game was one of the best players in the NBA. I think he was averaging 35 points. And, we mentioned it to each other in the first half. We're like, God, he can't even notice him. I haven't noticed him yet. And it was 6 minutes left in the first quarter. And you look, 17 points, 9 turnovers.
Yeah.
Ja Morant had 9 turnovers last night. It's a pretty good job. Good job. I don't think you can put it all on Dame, but you have to give him some credit, that they slowed him down. So I think probably in the back of a lot of people's minds, they were bracing oh, God, I could see Ja Morant going for 38, but didn't happen.
Yeah, some of us thought D'Anthony Melton was going to have a good game, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Oh, Mike made a Oregon lottery bet that D'Anthony Melton would have over 18 and a half points and rebounds
And I donated that money because Anthony Melton went 0 for 9 from the floor.
0 for 8. 0 for 8.
0 for 8. He was the only Grizzly who played in the first 3 quarters who didn't score. So, can't win them all. I don't claim to be an expert, but I did think I was going to win $20 or whatever it was. Instead, I had to donate some money. Jason, we'll let you get out of here, but you wrote a story on Anfernee Simons today. Can you give us, without giving it away, because listen, people should pay for your work at The Athletic. Go ahead and go, but give us sort of the elevator pitch on what you've seen from Anfernee and what you wrote about him today.
Well, I think everyone can see that he's really matured on the court. It's a different Anfernee Simons we're seeing, and I thought he was really important to last night's game. In the first half, when they were scuffling and stuff, he kept them in it. He hit back-to-back threes twice, made a nice driving lay-in, and as Chauncey Billups said, he kept them afloat. And I thought last night was a really nice capsule of how far he has come and how much he has matured and grown. And so I tried to illustrate that with a story from 2 years ago when Anfernee was just starting to get kind of a sniff from Terry Stotts, and he didn't take advantage of one of his early opportunities. So his trainer, Phil Beckner, who's also Damian Lillard's trainer, said, "Okay, we're working out tomorrow night." So they come down to the Blazers practice facility, and Phil Beckner gives him this, as he calls it, a Vince Lombardi type speech to pep him up and to really get him going. And Anfernee didn't have the greatest response to that. And if you know Ant, it's so Ant. He's this little kid. He was 20 at the time. And Phil sitting there laying into him going, "Stotts gave you a chance and you didn't take it. This is your time to show how much this means to you. It's time for you to show how much to show Stotts how much it means. This is your fork in the road. You got to put your stake in the ground." And Ant, after all this is done, it's about 15 minutes of Phil rant and rave, and Ant goes, and so then Phil says, "All right, you ready to watch some clips from last night and see where you screwed up?" And Ant's like, "Well, can we watch it in here?" And he points to the Blazers dining room, and Phil's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, I really kind of want to eat some cereal." And Phil just lost it. And so Anfernee Simons has gone from the little kid who wanted to eat cereal to being the guy who keeps the Blazers afloat in a time of need. And I think you can really see, I just think that really illustrates how far this kid has come. And I think the world of Anfernee as a kid, and I love watching his game, and I can't wait to see what he has in store for us this year, because I think he can be really good.
He wore the mic last night on the ESPN game, and Yusuf Nurkic said something like, "Why did they give him a mic? He never says anything." Exactly. Which I think is like, it's maybe a sign of his growth, is that national TV is like, we should hear a little more from this kid. It's a pretty good one. Subscribe to The Athletic, y'all. No one's covering the team longer. No one's covering the team better than Jason. If you listen to this podcast, so much of what I'm able to do is because I have someone like Jason Quick who sits next to me on press row, and I can learn from him. I'm reading everything he writes, but I'm also bouncing ideas off him. He's telling me I'm stupid, or he's occasionally complimenting me. One in every, whatever Dame was, 2 for 24. I'm about 2 for 24 in Jason Quick compliments. But listen, go subscribe to The Athletic.
They mean more, right?
They do. Exactly. If you have to earn them.
I don't blow smoke up your butt.
Yeah, you're a straight shooter. You're going to tell me like it is, which I appreciate. Even if maybe earlier in my career, I was like, why, could he just be nice? Could he just be nice to me? But it's made me a better reporter. It's made me want to be smarter and sharper about the team and kind of and find my own way in. Be a Larry Nance. I got to find my own way in because I know Jason's going to be he's going to get his, so I got to figure out how to get mine. I love it. But subscribe to The Athletic, y'all. It is just Jason's work alone is worth the subscription price, and then you get writers from every sport all over the country, so you'll be happy that you get to read quick, and then you'll get a bonus of reading a whole bunch of other wonderful writers. You get to read a wonderful Josh Robbins piece. You'll get to read Bill Oram, who wrote a wonderful piece on Avery Bradley. If you like the league, you will appreciate reading The Athletic. Also, dear listeners, go subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get to 1,000 by Halloween. You were listening to this on October 29th. We are 2 days away. And I'm just going to say, we're close. As I'm recording this, we're over 950. I need 40 of you to go to YouTube and subscribe to the show so we can get to our goal by Halloween. Also, just tell your friends about this podcast. They can get it wherever they get podcasts, as every podcast provider, as well as YouTube. Just search Locked On Blazers. We will be there waiting for you. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.